one has to be legally correct, because to determine genocide, it has to be through a process of legal procedures. So therefore, I can only say that there's the hallmarks of a genocide.
But until that is stated, surely that we can expect no action from the UN Security Council?
That's sadly true. That's sadly true, but we're forgetting the decades of discrimination, the decades of discrimination by law and by practice and by policy against this group, which was like, it's like herding cattle. You just herd through a small alley, and this is what happened metaphorically and physically to the Rohingya population, where they've been herded into a small area emotionally and physically, and with all kinds of barriers put on, infringements on their human rights, and where they're at a point where there's nowhere to go.
So you would agree that it is the systematic targeting and persecution of a people?
Yes.
And you would agree that there has been a concerted effort to destroy the very identity of the Rohingya people?
Absolutely, absolutely.
Which does appear to suggest that genocide is occurring?
Absolutely.
So it is genocide?
Hallmarks of genocide.
In the past, you were prevented from travelling to Rakhine State. Now you've been prevented from travelling to Burma itself. Why do you think that's happened?
Well, they said I was biased and unfair, and every time I asked what was it that I was biased and unfair, there's really no real clear answer. Well, when I say that the Rohingyas are, this and that, and the government says we don't have any Rohingyas, I can't accept that in principle, and that's being biased. And when I declare that there's been extrajudicial killings, there's been arbitrary arrests, they'll say, no, we've never done that. Or rape. They say, well, there's no rape.
And when you say they say this,
the government.
And that includes Aung San Suu Kyi?
Yes. Yes.
So you've had this out with Aung San Suu Kyi?
Yes.
And what is your view of Aung San Suu Kyi? Has she got her head in the sand?
I think that she's either denying or she's really far removed.
She's also very far removed from the image that the world had of her for so many years. The world had put her on a pedestal as a sort of goddess of democracy and human rights.
Right.
What's happened?
She was never a goddess of human rights. That's what happened. She was a politician, and she is a politician.
Do you think Aung San Suu Kyi should be held accountable for what is happening to the Rohingya?
She can't be not accountable. Complicity is also part of accountability.
So you see it as possible that someday in the future a criminal tribunal could find Aung San Suu Kyi herself guilty, perhaps, of crimes against humanity, even genocide?
Complicity or neglecting to do anything about or halting this could be.
But isn't that command responsibility, the very definition of it?
Absolutely.
So she could be guilty of these very, very serious crimes?
I'm afraid so. She has been a role model for everyone, me included. And in Asia, she's been a role model too. And it is really disappointing.
Do you think the Rohingya people now in Bangladesh can be safely repatriated, as both countries seem to want?
No, not at the moment, not under the conditions now. But I want to step back a little bit, and I have been stating that unless the discriminatory and oppressive laws against the Rohingya population are dismantled, you're going to see the same things happen again, even after they return.
Today, the two Reuters journalists accused of being traitors are going on trial again. What's your view of the government's hounding of those two journalists?
They were getting too close. And this is one way of the government, or the military forces of the government, trying to put a national gag on the people. People are just afraid to speak out anymore. I think there are more mass graves that will be discovered sooner or later, because this is something that I've received myself too.
You've received information about mass graves. Mm-hmm. So you think that the death toll, which at the moment is not reported as being that high, is simply because we just don't know?
We just don't know.
Right.
Yeah.
What likelihood is there of there ever being accountability for a country which is not a member of the International Criminal Court and which has allies which will veto a UN Security Council referral?
I've repeatedly asked China and Russia to stand on the side of human rights. China is trying to become one of the most powerful nations in the world, but to be a global leader and to be shoulder to shoulder with other global leaders, you cannot, even if human rights is not high on their agenda, they cannot be seen as a country that supports a country where genocide is happening.
What hope of seeing Aung San Suu Kyi held accountable in her lifetime?
Well, very small, but it's better than not having the truth come out and not having justice, because the people of Myanmar deserve to know. The victims of Myanmar, the mass atrocities, definitely have a right to know what happened and to have justice served.
Jonathan Miller reporting. And the Myanmar military and the government of Aung San Suu Kyi have repeatedly denied that ethnic cleansing is taking place in Rakhine State. A Burmese minister has attributed the mass exodus of Rohingya people to their fear of attack by extremists and said that the Burmese military do not attack innocent villages.